6:30.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, so at 6:30, welcome to the Natural Resources Committee of the City of Westfield City Council, January 26, 2023 meeting. This is a Zoom teleconference meeting. Specific information can be found on the City of Westfield website at www.cityofwestfield.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so by tuning into channel 15 or online at www.westfieldtv.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the city's website an audio recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Agenda item number 1 is a call to order. I will call this meeting to order at 6:31 with a roll call as item number 2. Councillor Alley?
Here.
Councillor Morganelli is not here or not here yet, and Councillor Mello is here. So item 3 is a reading of the record. Dan, were you able to take a look at the minutes I sent?
Yes.
Would you like to make a motion about them?
Yes. Motion to accept the minutes of the April 28th, 2022 meeting, the Natural Resources Committee.
I will second the motion. Is there any discussion?
No, you did a good job. There were extensive notes, so kudos.
Thank you. So we will need a roll call vote. The motion is made and seconded. So Councillor Alley?
Yes.
Councillor Morganelli is not here, and Councillor Mello says yes, so they are accepted. Item 4 is public participation. I see that we have 2 members of the public here. Would anyone like to give public participation at tonight's meeting? Okay, seeing none. Item 5, communications of departments or city officers. They are all included in that drive that I shared with you for our discussions under old business. No one could attend tonight's meeting. So we can move on. Look at, we're cooking, Dan. We can move on to item 6, old business. 6A is our continued discussion of the review of the local regulation regarding sewer availability and septic systems. So this first came into committee in August of 2021 after the regulation that was in place was rescinded by the Board of Health. We discussed it again last spring when Attorney Fitzgerald came and spoke to us about what to do about it. However, since then, we had left that meeting with the understanding that for a regulation to be in place, the Board of Health would need to make it. And for us to have any effect on the future, we could put a provision in a zoning ordinance requiring any future development, to follow these rules, but that we couldn't do anything about existing setups now and people who were that close. However, in the email that I received just a couple days ago from Jeff Gamelli, there is a reference to the city of Marlborough. And they have a sewer ordinance that has exactly the kind of hookup requirement that we had been discussing, that would take, that would step in where that regulation was missing. So that has been shared with you and everyone else in the discussion. I wanted to come back to committee with that because I'd like to go to the law department and ask them to take a look at the 2 and sort of tell us where we can go with that, because if it's in our ability to help keep pollutants out of the water, I would like to try.
All right, so I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So are you leaning toward the city council passing a zoning ordinance?
Well, in the case of locations that are in the Water Resources Protection District, we can do that with what's already in committee. And so we can add that in there. And then anything else can be talked about. And I mean, that will also be debated on the floor, right, when it goes there.
Right, 'cause
But the Marlboro ordinance is about connecting to the sewer when it's available. And it's not
Right, there was
location.
two options. One was the zoning ordinance, and then the other would be the Board of Health regulating it. And
And
one of the,
Marlboro did an option 3 we weren't given.
what was it? All right. So just for the public and whatever, describe the third option. I read it, but I didn't realize there was a third option.
Well, I checked, and it's an ordinance, right, from the city of Marlboro about connecting to their sewer system. It is not for a specific zone, and it is not a Board of Health regulation. It is some other beast that we did not discuss last year.
Okay,
Hence my bringing it to you and wanting to discuss it with the law department.
right. Because one would be like enforcement, and then obviously we have an aquifer, which would have to be addressed, but all right, so all right. So it's an ordinance, but it's just a general ordinance that's not based on zoning.
It's a requirement that if the sewer goes past your house, you connect, either under condition 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Right. The only thing I had a question with that one is this, there was like a requirement, I was hoping somebody would be here to discuss it, but that like undeveloped lots. I have to go back to it, but and there was a question whether or not or why it was included that undeveloped lots. I thought it needed to be clearer, like that they wouldn't necessarily, have to pay a fee or whatever, but when they became developed, they would be required.
Right there. Yeah, there are,
I think it was residential and non-residential.
correct. There are exemptions in each.
Right. I just thought that
And
that should be clearer, because in other words, if you had an undeveloped lot and may remain undeveloped for forever, that they, being required, it should have become developed. That would make sense.
correct.
But
And it in addition to that example that was sent by Mr. Gamelli, he also sent an example from another township that did a fee assessment, a betterment assessment, but also a privilege assessment. And the thing about it is that a betterment assessment is very much tied to Mass General Law, right? And
right,
things need to happen within a particular amount of time of a betterment that a municipality engages in, right? And I think we are well past that time for most of the places we're talking about, but this other municipality had a privilege assessed fee, and it, for all those things for which the betterment fee did not apply, particularly undeveloped lots or things that had timed out or other situations, there was a privilege fee that would come into play under various considerations. And I mean, it's pages long, so you can read it, but it is not the same as the betterment assessment, but it is a fee that acknowledges the fact that because the sewer does run by your place, if you subdivide it or you sell it to someone else who develops it or XYZ, then that fee comes into play.
right,
Right. So it's not, it does not charge you for something you're not taking benefit of, but when you take benefit of it, it charges you. Is my reading and understanding of it. But again, this is where we need to bring in the law department to say, is how this is written for this municipality the right fit for us?
right. Now there are 660 homes that are on the sewer list that haven't signed up.
Now that list needs to be updated because it's a little bit, it's a
That
little
was my
bit
question.
delayed. I looked up some of them, and yes, it is true in some places. And in other places, it needs a little updating. So in the neighborhood of 600. That's
Right,
it.
so. And so what department is actually responsible or would be involved with updating that? Or how? 'Cause they made it sound like they were already having trouble. The Board of Health was having trouble with communication when new sewers were being installed, which I think that would be a simple matter. Um, you know, even if it was just being thrown into a file. So that was an issue. But who would be responsible to update that or to realize that, for instance, are there variances filed for all those houses?
I spoke with some members of the engineering department today. We're gonna go over what was done and when,
Right,
right? Because some of the GIS is updated and some of it was unclear as I was looking, because I went through those lists this afternoon to sort of get an idea of how many were really close to the wells, right? And how many were not, because, right, if you were going to sort of triage resources, things that protect water that people consume would be, up there, right? So I
right.
wanted to see how many were near wells first. And so
So, I have one more other question would be,
Yeah.
so since this was rescinded in 2017, did the Board of Health still, accept variances or keep any of those records or stay
they
involved? I
rescinded
guess?
it in 2021, and since then
Oh,
they
right,
don't
right. I'm sorry. August of 21, yeah,
variances.
right.
Nobody has to talk about it. There's no requirement to hook up.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting situation there.
Yeah, the minutes are included in that folder.
Yeah, no, I read them. Yeah,
Yeah.
just, yeah,
Yeah. But if the Marlboro situation, that would be something, if that works, then that would be something within the council's purview to do about it. So
Right.
hence my bringing it up, and hence wanting to discuss it with law. Now, we did last spring send out of committee a motion to ask the Water Commission to give us their best analysis and shot at a betterment fee.
Right.
We never heard back about that, but I wonder if it is because of the definition of the betterment fee and the time window. So we may want to, send an email. I don't know that it needs to go through the council again because it's the same idea. It's just a different word. To send an email to ask about a privilege fee.
So did the Water Commission, they did not get back to you?
Counselor Alley, sometimes people don't get back to me. I don't know what to say about that.
Okay. So as it stands right now, we don't have a betterment fee, right?
Not to my knowledge.
Right. Right.
And the nuances of that, like the 1 through 4 that other municipalities have had, I just got a septic system. You shouldn't, make me have to connect right now. I just spent all this money, right? All those nuances are in the details of those ordinances and can, be talked about and obviously adjusted to be more particular to Westfield.
All right. So, all right. So I haven't had a chance to wade through. I mean, I did read it, but the Marlboro thing is quite extensive.
Correct.
So you want to send that to legal and have them kind of,
I'd like to schedule another meeting where we all have a chance to look at everything and ask legal questions in our meeting.
right? Yeah, because that's a, right. Yeah, because that's an extensive document to look at and then either, like you say, ask questions or, decide if we want to, modify it somehow.
Right, and we don't even know if that's our last opinion and our opinion that's in writing is that that's not an option. So I really want to make sure that it is, because if Marlboro is out of their lane by writing that ordinance and nobody ever brought it in front of a court before, right, we don't want to waste our time with something that would be out of our lane.
Okay,
So I also want to check on the validity of that path forward.
right. Well, it can be going forward, it can't be retroactive. Right, you can't go back.
Theirs is for everyone existing in city limits from this date forward. Existing.
From whatever date they enacted it though, right?
And everyone on septic had X amount of time to do it.
Right. All right, I didn't have a chance to go back to it, but
And
then,
then there were variances that they could go to the Board of Health for, but yeah.
right,
So there are a lot of ways to approach it, and the thing about it is that the state has a betterment loan program. So if, and again, this is another question for legal, the way I read it, if the betterment, if the septic to sewer regulation comes from the Board of Health, then the betterment loan program, the city council can vote to use it here. And then the homeowner and the Board of Health enter into this agreement together, and, things move forward. A lot like what Attorney Fitzgerald's letter said to us at the end, that list of how you do the betterment program. I don't know if the city of Marlboro, because of the way they wrote their sewer ordinance, I don't know if that qualifies for the betterment program, or if those are two separate independent ideas, that the requirement to do it is independent from the financial program that helps you do it. So that's another question for legal. I don't know. Right, because if the financial assistance for homeowners only happens if it comes from the Board of Health, then we need to approach the Board of Health and the mayor for that.
right. Now the Board of Health, when they rescinded this, part of it is that first of all, it was cumbersome, and that they didn't have during the pandemic as well, but they didn't have the resources. And I question, do we know how many records of variances out of that 600 they're in possession of? How many people actually signed any of that?
We have no idea.
Because then that becomes unenforceable on top of it, because if you didn't sign the variance or the request for the variance, that number was returned by the homeowners.
Well, I don't know how the records are kept right now.
Right.
And I don't know how Title V things are entered, but I would imagine that since Title V stuff goes with the state, that there is some kind of digital way it happens. And what I would say is that if you need a new septic system, right, you need a new Title V, right? And somebody has to do that.
Or if you sell a property.
Right. So that would be where the enforcement comes in.
And I'm wondering, even was that list even being updated at any point from 2017 or even 2021, when these properties were changing hands?
Correct.
No
one between
So it's a fair
2021
amount of
and
work,
now.
not just for this committee, but then going forward, as far as actually, it already sounds like the Board of Health doesn't want to deal with this. I mean, I was kind of amazed that they rescinded the way that they did. So unlike them.
What do you want me to say?
Wow.
What do you want me to say,
Well
Dan?
behaved. So, how unlike you. So, all right. Yeah.
I'm drinking my tea. You see me drinking my tea, Dan?
Yeah.
All
right.
So the question is, if the Marlboro option is a way forward, and
legal would answer that. Do you want to make a motion to send the Marlboro ordinance to legal for their opinion on that?
Yeah, let's invite Law to our next meeting to get their opinion on, right?
Well, do we even need to do that? I mean, can't we just make that as a motion, send that to legal and just get written opinion back on that? Rather
Okay,
than, and then maybe if she wants to come back and discuss it, you know,
okay. Do we need a motion for me to send her an email? Because I'll just send her an email if we don't.
I don't know.
Our last meeting, it was Nick's opinion that we did not.
Okay, yeah, so I would say,
All right, so then
Um,
if you authorize me to so do, I will email all the questions we just talked about.
yes,
Okay.
okay.
All right,
All the
is there
roll.
anything else on that other than, oh, one last thing, if whether it was Board of Health or an ordinance from the city council, if we were able to still participate in the betterment program, the betterment loan program, because of how much PFAS ends up in human waste and because COVID is also in human waste, if the mayor and the city council and others were so inclined, it could be argued that assistance and the potential to incentivize the program could happen with ARPA funds. Because it's in the betterment of public health to get the human waste in the sewer and the wastewater treatment instead of in the recharge of our aquifer.
So is that a question?
No, that is just a statement to share with you.
Okay,
I did share the same information with the mayor, such that if he wants to follow up, he could have his staff do so.
so was he inclined to acquiesce to your request?
It wasn't a request. I was just sharing information. He thanked me for sharing it.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously the city, the shareholders, when those sewers went in, the entire city covered the cost of that installation.
Was it the city or was it the sewer rate payers?
It would be the sewer rate payers, but the entire city picks that up.
Well,
know,
sure,
that's part of-
because we transfer general fund money to cover it, don't we?
Possibly, but as far as like I don't remember it was under, how it was capitalized, that was done, like the up in like a valley, that whole area up off of valley. It's installed, it's going by your house, that whole section. Some people were, absolutely great, if you, especially if you had a septic system that was failing or getting ready to fail. Was a godsend, and it wasn't this enormous expense. It's all the ratepayers picked up the cost of that. However, it was, whether it was done, I would assume it would have been like a bond or, capital expense, over a number of years. And so every ratepayer is, paying toward, and sewer rates is a big part of your water bill, a lot, so, and I understand for people, it's an enormous expense, but actually hooking up to the sewer is not expensive. It's probably way less expensive than replacing a septic system.
That is what we were told last time,
Yeah,
that it was significantly less expensive to connect.
correct. I'm like in like the neighborhood of like a few $1,000s even.
Oh, I think it was, I think it was like 50%, yeah, cheaper to,
Oh, no, I mean, I'm talking
was
about
like
the
half the
total
cost, yeah.
cost. Oh, yeah, septic systems can be very expensive.
Mm. So,
And so, you wish they had, had more people hook up to it, in certain areas, because you really actually need more people to hook up to it to get the system to work properly.
so that's everything I have to
Thanks.
share on the new information that we got. I
Right,
did speak with both Jeff and Matt in order to make sure that we look through and double check those two lists that we got. And then,
you're talking about the dry cap and the,
mhm.
and then
And
the bit, Well, the houses that aren't hooked up. Right,
Yes, both
Those-
both lists, because one is an opportunity to connect to sewer and clean water and, other fees if the water commission, calculates that.
I was hoping it was gonna be it. Can you explain, so dry cap, what is that?
I asked him today, when a developer goes in and puts in the infrastructure of the development, but the city hasn't run the sewer line up there yet. And so they have it there, the sewer's ready to go, but it's capped.
So no, so there's something running from the house out to the street, or to the property line?
Well, the infrastructure in the development is there. So I don't
Okay,
know
the
if it
roads.
actually connects to the house, like literally all the way, or
No,
if it
they have
just
to put
goes
in the
through the
street,
property line
that's
in the
out of-
street.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's in the street,
Yeah, if you look on the GIS and turn on
okay,
the utilities for sewers, it's the broken blue lines.
okay. So it's in the street, it's not necessarily connected to the house, because the house right now is connected to. a
To the
system.
septic, that's right.
Can I jump in there, Kristen?
Please, if it's
So-
if it's a statement of fact, no deliberating, sir.
Yes, oh yeah. Statement of fact, I live on Marla Circle in Scarfo Heights. We had a dry cap system put in our neighborhood when the neighborhood was built. It wasn't connected to city, but we all needed septic, so we all had to pay, the original homeowners had to pay to put septic systems in all these yards because the developer put his job, he did his job, put the pipes in the street, but then the city never connected them to the city sewer. So the city's decision not to make that connection cost every homeowner up here, tens of thousands of dollars in extra fees to put in septic systems. Now it sounds like you want to mandate that we throw those things away and pay thousands more to connect to the septic. To the sewer lines.
No.
So
But
the sewer lines are now connected. The sewer lines, they were dry capped, now they're connected to the city.
Right.
But we have perfectly fine working septics in our backyards, most of us.
correct.
So
But
I-
the question though is the connection that the developer put in all the way to your house?
no,
It can't be,
no, it's through the street. So you have to, like John Beltrandi just did this for a neighbor across the street. When they were selling their house, they decided to replace the septic and get rid of it because the city at the time had that rule. Even though they had a perfectly fine septic system that passed their inspections, they were originally required to get rid of the thing. So they hired Mr. Beltrandi's company to come in, and I believe they crush the tank and fill it, and then they connect the pipe from the house to the city sewer. That's how it works. So the
And-
pipe is sitting out there in the street with no connection.
Okay.
You have to connect, you have to disconnect your septic and run the pipe to the sewer line.
And what year was the development put in?
I don't know, this house is like 20, 23 years old, maybe.
And what is the average lifespan of the septic systems you guys put in up there?
I have no idea, but ours passes, every time we get it checked. We clean it out regular and have the guy come in and check things.
Okay,
So, and then when you change ownership of the house, they usually check those things. Like if you go to sell your house, I think part of the inspection is that. So I think that's part of the problem with these dry cap developments is the homeowners have paid twice essentially, because they paid for the developer to put all the stuff in the streets, and then the city never connected to it. And then they had to go and put septics in the backyards,
well, I think,
so Dave,
I think,
if I can
think,
I
if
ask a question?
Mm.
Just to understand, so I can understand having a dry cap system because the city hasn't, connected to the sewer system overall. But wouldn't the developer have to have installed the septic system when you bought the house when it was brand new?
yeah, of
So you're
course. you
paying
couldn't
for it
live there
then.
without-
So in other words, that's just part of the cost of the house because
Right, it's
That's
an
more
added cost,
construction.
right? If the connection in the street was made all the way to the city,
Correct.
you wouldn't need a septic system. And
Right.
I think that's the way it is with new developments, and, you'll have to confirm that with the sewer guys and the engineering, but I think most new development in the city, they require, a sewer system put in unless they know there's no chance in hell that they're ever gonna get the sewer out there,
Right.
but I think, in a lot of these new developments or, developments over the last 20-something years, they're close enough to septic, they made the builders put them in. I mean, sanitary
So-
sewers.
So right now, they're, even when you sell a house, as long as your septic passes Title V, you're not, are you saying there's, because nobody's being required, right? To,
You used
hook
to be
up.
required at the time of sale. That's the thing that changed about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
right, well, this got rescinded.
Yeah, because if you had a working system past inspection, you weren't mandatory,
Right.
you weren't required.
I can't believe it. I still can't believe they rescinded this thing.
So okay, so Counselor Flaherty, before I let you remute, I would just like to know, what was the average cost of the systems?
Of a septic?
Yep.
I think they're in the $20,000 neighborhood.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
$20,000 20 years ago or $20,000 now?
I don't know. I that's the number that I heard floating around was 20,000. And I know to
Right.
connect to sewer, is somewhere between 3 and 12,000, depending how deep they have to go and, what's in the way and that kind of stuff. Like in my case, they'd have to go around my gazebo or underneath it. So that would take, a little bit more engineering and stuff to get the pipe over there. Because you have to have the pipe a certain pitch to make everything flow right. And if you go around things and make the line longer, then you may not have the pitch. So, it can vary based on the property. I had another guy that John told me he had to dig down 20 feet to make a connection. And when you dig in a 20-foot trench down, that makes it a lot more expensive than digging a 6-foot one,
Yeah.
Okay, and so just for clarification, because I know that you said you thought this was about the dry cap areas, it's the dry cap areas where the sewer has gone past. If the legislative option is available, the discussion to ensure that the residents have, achieved their return on investment can still happen. So the parameters for when connection happens or what triggers that connection event are all up for discussion if we even find out that the legislative option is available.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's the way I
just for
understand it.
clarification, it does not require that the residents give up their investment.
But you might charge them a fee if they don't, is what I heard them trying to say. So if they choose not to connect, they would be charged with some kind of a fee to make up for the capital investment the city makes to connect to the sewer.
Well, no, it's not about whether or not they connect or don't connect. It's the people that are not connected, but the sewer is right in front of them, enjoy an insurance that other residents who do not have sewer in front of them do not enjoy. And that's the fee.
But they've already paid, and like in our neighborhood's case, they paid for those pipes to go in the street. The reason they
Okay.
weren't connected was not their fault. You know what I mean? They've already paid that as part of their house. They paid for those pipes in the street itself, and then they also had to pay for the septic system in the backyard because the city failed to make the connection.
True.
So now the city makes a connection and they want to charge these people again for not
Okay.
using something that they paid for.
So
And there was a
while I
list.
believe that that is a statement of fact, I believe that we are treading close to something called deliberation.
Yep, I won't
And
deliberate
so
in your meeting. Yep.
The purpose of tonight's meeting is to bring the new information that was brought to me forward to the committee and to get, permission to go to law and find out if it even applies to us. And if it applies to us and you want to discuss it after that, we need to do that on the council floor.
Well, that letter you presented from Board of Health, that counselor that they're referring to was me. That's why I thought you wanted me here.
Well, yes, and if you wanted to say something in public participation, that's okay, but you know what we were told about counselors participating.
Yeah, I'm not gonna deliberate. Yep. Okay.
Okay, so arguments about whether or not a fee should be assessed about anything, that's not the scope of tonight's conversation. The scope
Okay.
of tonight's conversation is, we're gonna bring the new information that was brought to us to law to say, how does this really work? Does it apply to Westfield? And if so, how are the parameters and what's the way forward with that?
Sounds good. I'll disconnect.
Okay. And how are you with that, Dan?
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, so shall we hear a motion to keep a 6A in committee and update with law?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we keep 6A discussion on the local regulation regarding sewer availability and septic systems remain in committee, and have the chair send, I guess, the Marlboro ordinance to legal for review.
I will second. Motion made and second. Any further discussion, Dan?
The legal, no, I would say, we'll have them report back and we'll go from there. So, no discussion.
Okay, so roll call vote. Counselor Alley?
Yes.
Counselor Morganelli is absent and Counselor Mello says yes, so that passes. 6B is the continued discussion of potential mechanisms for sewer rate savings and reductions originating from our 12/16/21 meeting. So the last time we met and discussed this, we mentioned the senior circuit breaker tax credit, right? And also that there was the low income household water assistance program that was also brought up again this month by a group called MassCap. It is for our area, run by the VOC. So I just added this back to our agenda because not only does adding more sewer ratepayers lower, everybody's burden, but for people finding it difficult to meet their water bills, those two options, one for seniors and one for low income households, are available. And the links for the senior circuit tax credit is at mass.gov, and it will be on our minutes when we put them out. And the low income household water assistance program, you go to Valley Opportunity Council for that. So that's valleyop.com. And that is everything for 6B. I don't have more from that. Did anybody receive any more from State Senator Vilas or Rep. Pease about other ways for seniors and other residents to save on utility bills?
No.
Do you want to hold it or you want to let it go?
I do have one question because those other items, did we ever hear back from the Water Commission on unaccounted usage?
We did not. Would you like to resend that?
Yeah, along with that other thing, but they didn't get back to us. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's the liaison on the city council?
Councilor Burns.
Council Burns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could we include having him ask?
Will do. Would you like to make that an official motion? Or we don't need to if you're making me do it?
If you don't mind doing it, then we'll
Nope.
dispense with a motion.
No, we're just gonna add it to my list.
Because of that long list of items, we have seen some action. Like the senior discount is now listed as part of the bill. You see that on there. Right over that whopping sewer rate. That's breathtaking. And that's one of the reasons to get this straightened out, because we're all paying like a lot of money for sewer. It's gotta be a way to, you know, all right, so, all right,
So do you want to keep 6B in committee, or should we
yeah, because
keep in?
yeah, I like to, whatever we can do to either,
So
something that would result in either a savings or, covering some of these costs. I'm surprised Jane didn't have any other comments. It's not
would you like to make a motion to keep it in committee?
I can make a motion to leave 6B in committee.
Second, motion
then
made and
propose
seconded.
it.
Any further discussion, Dan?
Nope,
Okay, roll call vote, Counselor Ally
yes,
and Counselor Mello, yes. So that motion passes. 7, new business, there is none. 8 is notes from the chair. I wanted to say that I went to the last master plan committee and they were talking about the survey that they did of the residents, and I noticed that open space and conservation and water protection were high up on the lists. So I will ask for some of that information to be shared with us. But I just wanted to say that that dovetails nicely into our conservation plan discussions and our zoning ordinance updo. 8B is the DEP air sensor update. Last meeting we had, the sensors had been calibrated and were being mailed back to us for installation. They have been installed. They are online. You can see the air sensors in real time at the purpleair.com map. And if you look at the Pioneer Valley Healthy Air website, they will show you your air sensors and also wind direction and what sensors across the valley also are showing. So they're taking that data and, just raising up the information just a little more. And we are the City of Westfield data is participatory in that network as well. So those are my
you
notes.
know
That's everything I
if those air sensors measure like aluminum? That's
I do not believe they are measuring for particular metals. It's the 2.5 nanometer particulate matter.
right. Because I know there's growing concern over aluminum.
That is something that could be brought up to air monitoring partners if that's what you want to do.
Yes.
Okay. I will report back next time I see him. Writing myself a note. So if that is everything, I will entertain a motion on item 9 if you want.
Yes. Let's entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will second the motion. Roll call vote. Counselor Ally
Yes.
and Counselor Mello, yes. So this meeting is adjourned at 7:13, 45 minutes, Dan.